So the first question we have to ask you is, what tasks does your job entail?
That's a question that has an answer which continues for about 3 hours. So, where do I start? I suppose I teach first and foremost. That's my first love. Okay. The second aspect of my job is that I'm head of the department. Therefore, I oversee 16 English teachers and something like 8 or 9 foreign language teachers. Those are French and German.
Responsibilities, I suppose.
A huge number of responsibilities, and as traditional head of the English department, it means that this particular position also entails other responsibilities within the school, such as being a member of the administrative council, being in the forefront when it comes to certain decisions that the school takes, being one of those responsible for the entrance examination, and so on and so forth. It's endless, so I don't want to bore you anymore.
Okay. Our next question is, on average, how many hours of English do students here at school have per week?
On average?
Yeah.
Of English? Well, it's either 5 or possibly 6.
Depending on the class.
Depending on the year, yes, that's right. Yeah. Depending on the class. That's right. And if we can also, to a certain extent, count the computer instruction hours, which should be taught as much as possible in English as well.
Yeah.
But that's a sore point with me. Let's do something else
It's even
before
quite
I get...
hard for us to understand in Greek, so...
Oh, really?
Sometimes, yes.
No.
So in English would make it a bit harder.
A bit harder or a bit easier?
I suppose harder. For me it's not a problem, but I don't know.
See, in the long run, it's probably easier because English is the language of computer science.
Sure.
And not just the computer science, but wherever you go in the world nowadays, you see people speaking, you hear people speaking English. Anyway, let's carry on. More questions?
Okay, so the next question is, what other languages are the students taught apart from English, and which seems to be currently the most popular one among them?
Well, they taught French, German, Spanish, and Italian here at Anatolia.
Spanish and Italian is in every...
No, it's not. Unfortunately, it's rarely taught in the gymnasium now. I think a year or 2 back, we also had some Spanish in the first year gymnasium, and I think some Italian as well. And there were choices there. But unfortunately, or fortunately, depends, there are more students doing French and German than those other languages. Ideally, we should be able to do many more languages at a school like
Do you think that the students' parents decide whether they should learn French or German, or it's up to the teenagers, up to the young students?
That's a very difficult one. I would imagine that first and foremost, especially when the child is aged 11 and a half or 12, it's the parents that come to that decision. Yeah. In all probability, those students have already been doing a little bit of a third language prior to coming to Anatolia, so they continue with it here. Yeah. Some parents consider that, let's say they've been doing French in their elementary school or in their private institute, that when they come to Anatolia, they can continue doing French at their private institute and do German at Anatolia. So there are all kinds of answers that I can give to that question. As the students grow older, I think they have a greater say in which language they wish to learn or wish to continue learning.
But then I suppose it's too late to change.
It's never too late. It's never too late. It's never too late to learn a language. Never too late. Next question.
What kind of literature are the students taught here at school?
Well, we have, you know very well that we start with literature. Even in the first year, perhaps 25% of your English course is the English Anthology, which has short stories and poems there, which are the equivalent of those being taught to children of the same age in the United States and in the UK. And in the first 3 years, you have anthologies. Those anthologies have material which is usually gradually becomes a little bit more challenging for the students, and also makes them think of various problems that exist in the world or exist within families and within school communities. All you have to think about is, let's say, Tuesday of the other June and the bullying that was in that story, and think of how important that topic has become. It's really a hot topic now around the world. And we've been doing it for many, many years here as a short story which made the students consider the problems that exist in that field. So, and then in the first year Lyceum, we have even more literature. Our more advanced students even do a Shakespeare play like The Tempest, or what was the other one they did? Much Ado About Nothing. And our less advanced students do an excerpt from Shakespeare. Romeo and Juliet, for example, is done. Together with a lot of other literature, and gradually by the 5th year the students are doing full novels. Again, much as they would do in an English-speaking school in Britain or the United States. And by the 6th form, then you have your elective program where students choose whatever they want to do, and many of the electives are literature-based. And there you're really at a university level with many of the courses that are offered. In other words, courses in universities and colleges in the United States would probably offer these courses to their first year students. So we're very proud of the literature that we teach at Anatolia, and of our students who manage to benefit from it.
So the next question concerns another topic. Do you believe that the slang adopted by young people has eroded the English language?
First of all, I don't know the slang that's adopted by young people. I don't understand some of the things that they say, and when on TV they explain certain things, I'm completely lost. So I don't know if it's slang that's eroded the language. It's more like the computer language that people use that's eroded the language, in that now with emails and other types of chat and so on, what is very often happening is that people forget about the formal and written aspect of English and write the way that they speak. And sometimes they even use those sign language stuff, with hearts and I love you, that type of stuff. I mean, that's completely lost to me, and that's bad.
Yeah,
that is bad.
We tend to shorten what we say.
Pardon?
We tend to shorten what we say.
We tend to shorten what we say, and perhaps in the final analysis we don't actually know exactly what we say. That's the case, in my opinion. What worries me is that in the end you won't be able to fully explain yourselves clearly in your own language. That's what worries me. And then you start having misunderstandings and so on. Even politicians nowadays don't know how to speak properly in many cases, in Britain and the States. How many more?
3.
3, okay, because I've got to go down a tunnel.
Okay. Next question is...
Tunnel, 3rd form, don't you remember?
Yeah, we'll go next week.
We're 3rd form.
Oh, you're the 3rd formers?
Yeah.
You babies.
So next question is, are your students encouraged to use computers or e-books during class, or are you in favor of the traditional ways of teaching?
You're talking to a dinosaur.
Not fun. Cool.
So, of course, I fully realize that the future is in using technology in a positive way in class. I totally understand that. However, having taught for 41 years now, it's very, very difficult for me to change my ways at this time, and since I retire in a few weeks in any case, I'm happy to say that I will avoid having to learn how to teach in a completely different way. Again, the warning signs for me are very, very significant, and among the warning signs is that in the end technology takes over and the teacher no longer is, let's say, the master of the class, but facilitates what goes on in the class. Now, presses buttons, says go to page something or other, go to that, and isn't actually teaching. For me, it's very, very important that you remember, once you finish school, your teachers. Do you understand what I mean?
Yeah.
You say, oh yes, I had that teacher, and I had that teacher. Yes, do you remember what that teacher did in class, and so on? For me, that's very, very important. Perhaps you remember that a little bit from your elementary school. That the teachers that stood out had a certain character. They were special to you. And they'll remain special to you for the rest of your lives. Sure. Last question?
This one and one more. On average, what do your students enjoy more, language or literature?
It depends on the level of the students. Usually the more advanced students, who don't find the literature as challenging as others, quite enjoy the literature. It's more of a struggle with the intermediate and regular students, because the language is a bit difficult for them, and the concepts sometimes are a real challenge. For me personally, I enjoy the literature, but there are various points of view, and I have a feeling that many of the students don't like the literature so much, but it's like classical music, or it's like Shakespeare, or other things that are difficult when we're young. We only appreciate them when we get older, and we say, yes, it wasn't as bad as I thought it was.
The last question is, what is the most important message conveyed by the international exchange program? What do you hope your students will gain from such a program?
Well, I hope our students will gain in, first of all, in helping their English. That's important. It's very important. A second aspect when it comes to the exchange program is that you begin to understand how your peers in other countries actually feel and act, and then make the comparison between yourselves and them, and perhaps see that things aren't as bad for you as you thought they were, because the students in England are under a great deal of pressure nowadays as well, and that is true of the teachers too. Another, and I think the benefit is that those children will also recognize that there are lots of misconceptions about Greeks and Greece and Greek youngsters, because the picture that is painted of Greek society outside Greece is not very favorable, and it's very, very unfair. Very, very unfair. So I think that only good can come out of this exchange, and even some lasting friendships between the students.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah, thank you very much.
It was my pleasure.